Hi everyone, it's Gav here, just a quick one. But before you enjoy today's show, please do us a massive favour and donate to our Christmas fundraiser for the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen. Last year's initiative was a huge success and we managed to raise almost £19,000. This is a hard enough time of the year for families as it is, but since COVID hit, even more people are struggling. Neighbours, family and friends. So yeah, head across to the ROKER Report website and social media channels where you'll find all the links to donate on our GoFundMe page. Thanks everyone.
Sunderland got beat after a whirlwind week where we got a new sporting director and a new manager, and we actually lost our manager last Sunday as well. It was just a mental time to be a Sunderland fan, and we all thought that Saturday against Wigan, bottom of the league at the Stadium of Light, new manager in the dugout, we would get a positive result. Wasn't to be. Wigan scored with their only shot of the game and beat us 1-0. To digest all of this, I have the poor Bromley. Niall, how are you doing, Niall?
Hello, Connor. Yeah, I'm all right, I suppose. Yeah. Obviously a disappointing result, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
We've also got Malcolm Dugdale here. How you doing, Malcolm? Sporting a nice 2013-14 shirt of good years. But well, it wasn't really a good year, but it was a better year than this one.
Well, there's not many that are much worse, is there? Well, thanks, Connor. Yeah. Clearly, things could be better, but then we could still be stuck with Parkinson, and then it would probably be worse. So trying to look for positives. And I'm sure there's a few to come.
I wonder how many times we'll say the words Parkinson or Phil Parkinson today. We'll try and limit it as much as we can, but I say we just jump straight into it, two-footed, stud showing. New manager in the dugout. His team selection, he went with a 4-3-3. Well, I would call it 4-3-3. Maybe you'd call it a 4-5-1. Aidan McGeady was back in the side. Will Grigg started up front as well. Niall, is that, do you think the sign of things to come? Is a Lee Johnson Sunderland side going to be a 4-3-3 kind of team, or do you think he's just trying to feel out his side in the early games?
Yeah, I think he is gonna fancy the 4-3-3. I think he's going to be more attacking. Because you've seen the way that we started yesterday. I've never seen Sunderland start so bright in a long time. They were creating openings, they were getting into the final third and getting plenty of corners. I think had about 4 or 5 corners inside the first 10 minutes or something like that. So that's something that we've not seen. I mean, we're lucky if we've been getting 3 or 4 corners the entire game so far this season. So that was nice to see. Obviously, with us being so open, it has let Wigan. I don't know if we had 5 at the back. Would that goal have went in? I don't know. But obviously, like you said, it's all a learning curve for him. But yeah, it probably is what we're going to see. I think he does like his attacking brand of football. So fingers crossed, that's what we're going to see, and we're going to see more exciting games and more goals, and hopefully more goals for Sunderland.
Malc, what did you make of Aidan McGeady coming back in the side? Because everyone knows that I've been on this Aidan McGeady in camp for a while. New manager comes in, first thing he does, puts him in the start 11. What did you make of that?
It's certainly an interesting thing to do. It screams everyone's got a chance now, which is, I think, a good message from a new coach to the whole squad. I was surprised when he was put in the starting 11. I thought he would come on off the bench because of his lack of game time since the summer when he finished his loan moves. But I think there was the whole game, even though the manager was obviously only a small number of hours in role before the game happened, the whole game seemed to me to have a bit of an air of, shows what you got. And he got a bit of that. Fair enough, we lost, but he got a bit of that. And I think it's positive for Aidan. It's positive for the club, because when he's well managed and well coached and fit and, those other kind of key attributes that you need, he's definitely, in the top 3 or 4 players in our whole squad, even at the age he is. He showed that, with some, pretty stinging shots that he managed to unleash. Unfortunately, he didn't get any to go in. But yeah, I think it was less about specifically telling Aidan that he's back and more about telling everybody, right, you've all got a chance now. I'm going to go with a clean deck and let's see what's coming out of the cupboard,
Talking of clean slates, Will Grigg started. It was an interesting decision to throw him in there. Obviously, we know how out of form and out of sorts Will Grigg's been really since he signed for Sunderland. But Niall, were you sort of in favour of the decision? I imagine Will Grigg's had his slate completely wiped clean. It's starting afresh for him. His mindset hopefully is refreshed. But were you surprised to see Lee Johnson throw him in straight away?
No. No, I wasn't surprised because he didn't have many other options other than Danny Grimm. And, I think Will Grigg, Lee Johnson will probably see him as a key to getting us promoted, because I think we all kind of know that Will Grigg, if you get him scoring and you get him firing, which is something we've not been able to do since he signed, somehow, if we can do that and if we can set him back on fire, so to speak, I think it's going to help us, because, I mean, you've seen the amount of goals we concede. We don't concede many goals. And yeah, it might change now under Lee Johnson with us playing a little bit more open. But, if you have, at this level, if you have someone who's capable of scoring 20, 25 goals, you're going to be in and around there. Because we have got goals in other areas of the pitch as well. But that one man who's putting them in, that's just going to help us so much. So I think that's the way Lee Johnson's going to look at it. He would have been desperate for Greg to score yesterday. And I think for us as fans as well, if Greg had scored yesterday, it would have been phenomenal for us. Everyone would have thought, oh, Johnson's going to get the best out of him. He's finally broke that duct, Unfortunately, it didn't happen for him. He didn't really have much of an opportunity, did he? He didn't really have a standout chance. But I think it's one of them things Lee Johnson's going to look at, and certainly until January, until he can strengthen, if that's what he wants to do, which we all think that is what he wants to do, then it is something, Will Grigg probably is going to play. I think he probably will play every week. Is it harsh on Charlie White because he's been scoring goals? I don't know, he's injured, so we don't know how long he's going to be out for, but I think that's what Johnson's going to do. He's a Johnson kind of player, so I'd be very surprised if he lost his place, to be honest.
Do you think, Malcolm, it was a mistake? I mean, this is what I thought yesterday. It was a mistake for Johnson to take charge of this game when he hasn't had a training session. He said that it was a whirlwind 48 hours to being appointed, which suggests to me that he had no idea he was getting the job on Wednesday night. And on Saturday, he's in the dugout at the stadium. Like, to me, that generally is a no-no. I've never known a manager get appointed on Saturday morning and then take the game on the afternoon. I can't legitimately think of a time that it's happened. It felt like a mistake at the time. Hindsight being what it is, we lost the game as well. Do you think it was a mistake?
It depends how the decision came around, really. If they said to him, look, you've got a choice, you can be in the technical area and you can run the team, or you can sit in the stands and our caretaker manager can do it. And he said, no, I want to be there. Then that's not a mistake. That's a bloody good attitude, because he just wants to get in, and he's happy to accept whatever comes of that, to take the rap for it if it's not anything positive, because he just wants to get in there, boots and all, and start understanding what's going on. I mean, there's an argument he can probably see what's going on a bit better from the stands. That's possibly one of the mistakes that you could suggest. You can see a game much better from the gods in the Stadium of Light than you can do from, row 4, where you're almost below the bloody pitch. But if he's been offered it and he's took it, good on the lad. He's not shirked the responsibility, even though it's short notice. If he's been pushed in to do that, then yes, it's a mistake, because when you bring a new director of sport in and a new head coach in, you've got to empower them to do things their own way. So if he's had his arm twisted, then I think that's bang out of order. But, he doesn't come across as the kind of guy who's going to be told, you know what you're doing today, you're looking after the team because I'm telling you to, because he's quite a well-spoken, well-trained, very knowledgeable footballing person. And if he didn't think it was going to help him, I think he would have told him where to stick it. So I don't think it was a mistake, as long as there was no kind of pushback on the actual idea. It was accepted by him. And if he did say, you know what, let me in there, then good on the lad, because he's taken it on warts and all before he's even had a chance to speak to most of the lads, I would guess.
And Niall, the other thing, I mean, I agree actually with quite a lot of what Malcolm said there, but I'm going to play devil's advocate. Do you think Johnson maybe looked at Wigan at home, bottom of the league? It was a good chance for him to get off to a good start, and he was going to try and use that to really set himself up? Or do you think, as Malcolm said, it was more to do with the attitude of, well, I'm here now, so why would I not get my hands dirty?
I think it's a bit of both. I think, like you say, I agree with everything Malcolm said, to be honest with you. But I also think that, yeah, he would have looked at it and would have thought, listen, at the bottom of the league, we're at home. If we can get a win here and break me duct straight away, first win, which is always, the first thing a manager needs to do as soon as possible. Today's a great opportunity to do it with Wigan coming here. It's backfired. I think it was a risk, and if it had worked, it would have been great. But like I say, it has backfired. But the positives, you can look at it now, and you can and he can look at it, and he knows exactly from in the dressing room, as well as, because I know Malcolm said about the stands. Yes, he might have seen more, but he's also seen the attitude in the dressing room. He touched on that in his post-match interview, didn't he? And said about the players, being a bit quiet and, not being as active as what he'd want them to be. So he's seen that side of it. So now I think he knows, after that brief experience, exactly what he needs to do to put it right. So I do think that he did try and do it just to get the first win out the way done. But I also think there was a lot more to it than that. And I totally agree with what Malcolm said. So yeah, it's I was pleased. I was a little bit surprised, but I was pleased that he was in the dugout yesterday, and it just shows his willingness to work. That competitiveness, that willingness to get wins and to get straight involved and get this club back on the winning route and hopefully out this division. And he saw that as the opening and the first way to take a step on that ladder.
We'll talk now about the game. We've been talking about 10 minutes now, and we still haven't actually mentioned the physical game itself. Wigan, 1 shot, 1 goal. Sunderland, by every metric, were the better side. I think we had over 70% possession. I think we had 16 shots. We had 47 crosses attempted, block shots. You name it, it happened in the game. Do you think we were maybe just a little bit unlucky there, Malcolm, in the fact that Wigan literally had the most smash and grab result you could probably ever have as an away team?
Yes, we're unlucky, but then, one of the, just building on the last question, if I may, one of the things that I don't want is, I don't think it's going to help the new manager and the new director of sport at all if we suddenly went on a winning sprint and he didn't see any of the issues that the past management have had to deal with. I think it's actually a good thing that he's gone in, up to the guts and seen us lose narrowly when we were quite a much more dominant presence than we have been arguably in a number of other games this season. So when he's dove in and seen that, then he can start thinking about how to fix it straight away. If we'd gone on a run of 5 or 6 2-3-0s and purely on new manager kind of influx, then what's he going to do to change anything, So, but yeah, I think we were unfortunate. But the thing that was clearly missing was that clinical killer shot or, header or whatever, I don't care if it goes in the bloody left buttock, I would still take it. And, it doesn't matter how many crosses you put in or how much possession you've got, that shot that young lad did for their team, or I don't know how young he is. I don't know the Wigan team that much. I've heard that most of them at the moment are youngsters. But it reminded me a bit of Josh Madger before he left us. He didn't need many opportunities. And a lot of the time, in my opinion, he wasn't brilliant at holding the ball up and, holding people at his back. But every now and again, he could take the ball, create himself half a yard and bang it in a corner and we'd be over the moon, And it was one of them occasions where their striker managed to do that. So I think we lost to a very opportune goal and we were unfortunate, but it just amplified for me the importance of that clinical finishing in the last third and the putting the best possible balls in. We started with Grigg, for instance, but a lot of the crosses that were coming in were high crosses. Grigg's not going to win them against big lummoxy centre backs. He needs the ball at the feet. So there were a few things that we possibly could have done differently, but we were unfortunate. But it was always going to be a bit of an experiment of a match. I just wish it hadn't been a loss.
Niall, I mentioned 47 crosses attempted, but only 6 successful. It suggests to me that Lee Johnson's going to favour a wing, favour going down the wings, but 6 successful. That to me suggests that A, the movement's not right in the box, and B, the final delivery must be very, very poor in set pieces. Josh Scowen, don't want to dig him out too much, but his set pieces on Saturday were just shocking. He couldn't get it past the first man. Do you think that that's something that needs to be worked on? Because we've talked a lot about the strikers not putting themselves in the right positions, but I think at times the delivery that we have from the wide positions it's abysmal, and 47 crosses attempted, 6 successful. How do we remedy that? How does Lee Johnson fix the problem that is Sunderland's sort of delivery?
He buys new players. I think because I mean, let's be honest. You're totally right in what you're saying. The final ball. I mean, the amount of times I was shouting at the telly because the amount of times we were on the wing and there was nobody in the area. And you say, where is everybody? And it was frustrating, but they were still crossing the balls in, like you say. But there's just nobody there. The final ball, the final delivery is awful. I know he got injured yesterday, but I mean, Denver Hume is something we've touched on for a long time. And I've said this a few times, he needs an arm around him and he needs to be taught how to cross a ball in. He needs that because he's got everything else to his game, but that end bit is just, it's so frustrating. And as you say, Scowen as well, it's just, it's frustrating to watch. I don't know how he changes it because, like I say, it's a key part of this level, isn't it? Set pieces. How many goals have we conceded due to set pieces? How many have we scored? Have we scored many? Not many at all. It's total frustration, and it is something that Lee Johnson. It is a pivotal part of us having a successful season this season, and it is that. Because like you say, it's not just the actual delivery itself. It's the want to be on the end of it, the want to be in the area. Why aren't people making darting runs? Why aren't people getting into positions, into areas, into space? It's not happening. So I don't know how he puts it right, but he certainly needs to put it right, and he needs to put it right now.
And you mentioned post game that it was obvious that there was a lack of pace and power within the squad. January's just around the corner. It's a month away. It's scary. Luckily, 2020 is on its way out within a month, which is nice. But how do we get the answers in January? Or do we have internal answers? Benji Kimpioga strikes me as the kind of player who might thrive in this team because we really lack players like him who are direct, who can, cause chaos. And I think that's what Benji Kimpioga is. He comes on and he runs around and he causes a lot of chaos and he worries defenders. But do you think the lack of pace and power, is there an answer within this squad, Malcolm, to fix that problem? Or do you think that it does have to come from an external source, i.e. a transfer?
I think there are players in the team that have got a bit of pace and power, but they've been underused. We've many times lamented the lack of game time for Jack Diamond. Obviously, Kimpioga, there was a lot of deliberation over his new contract, and then when he was banging them in time after time for the under-23s, he then got an injury, so he didn't get a chance to put that onto the first team pitch. So I think it'll possibly end up being a bit of a combination. The challenge is, even though January's not far away, with all of the rules about how much you can spend, both in the league and this, that and the other at the moment, and even if the new ownership model is confirmed and there are people with very deep pockets knocking around the northeast, it's more what we can do without shelling out people. There were a segment of the fan base who were thinking, and I've spoken to mates who've had this line of thinking, that part of the reason Aidan McGeady was sidelined was because he's got a big pay packet compared to a lot of others. And if we let him go, much the same as letting Watmore go or letting other people go in the past, cut them all the same, you kind of free up the wages for a number of other players instead. Now, they're not going to be the same quality. It does give you more options. But I think the guys are going to have to get what they can out of the bulk of the squad that we've got, because you're not going to be able to tear the team sheet up, chuck all of the squad into the under-23s and start again. You're not allowed to do that anymore, even if you have got a billionaire backer. So I'd like to see the new coaching team's capabilities bring the best out of the lads that we've got, identify the kind of gaps and the weaknesses, and he's already identified quite nicely that pace and power is important, and try and fill those as efficiently as possible. Yesterday was dying out for somebody to actually run at their centre-back pairing with some intent. A couple of times, a couple of people did it, and they did all right. Scowen actually had a good run, but then he fudged the shot and didn't get it on target. So I think if we've got that as an option, it's not just about going wide and bombing it in. The opposition teams will have to be ready for us to run at them as well. And that'll give us a different dimension we just haven't got right now.
And Niall, in terms of January, there's this EFL bailout coming. I'm pretty sure the rules dictate if you take money from that EFL bailout. It limits what you can do in terms of the transfer market. So it's very possible that January just isn't an option really to fix the problems at Sunderland, because if you take this bailout, which I imagine is essential to the club, although we may have a new billionaire owner by then, it means that he's probably going to have to find internal options. He's going to have to find loans, and he's going to have to find things within our squad and under 23 squad. Malc's touched on a lot of the some of the players that could come in, but is there any players, maybe Dan Neil we talk about all the time, but putting players like him in might influence that, and he might be what we need, because he is a player who likes to get between the lines. He's a bit more forward thinking. Same with obviously Elliot Embleton, who we've craved to see, and obviously he came on yesterday. But it feels to me like the answer is going to have to be within the Academy of Light. Would you agree?
No. I think that Lee Johnson knows that he can make his squad better in January, because he's already touched on it. So there's no way that he would say that in an interview if he's not been told that he can. And he's probably already got an idea of exactly who he's going to bring in. So I don't think the answer lies with the academy for him. I do think that the options there, your Jack Diamond, your Dan Neil, your Embleton, your Kimpioka, I would have them in the first team when they're all fit. I would probably play them as well. I think as well, if you've got players like Aidan McGeady now back in the team, working with these players, it's only going to be a benefit to them. So yeah, I would definitely have them in and around, and I think it will help us. But I don't think for Lee Johnson that's the answer. I think he knows exactly what he needs, and I think he knows exactly what he's going to try and get. And I also think he's been told he can go get it. Whether it be loans or whatever, I don't know, but I'll be very surprised if we don't strengthen in January. And I think the players that will strengthen will be players that he knows, players he's worked with, maybe he's at Bristol City or Barnsley, players he's comfortable with, and players that he know have a bit of pace and can get into these advanced areas and get where, better end product and more goals, which is obviously what we need more than anything else. So yeah, I think that's what he's going to do. But I would like to see the youngsters in there. They deserve the opportunity. They need the opportunity. He has also said in an interview that he believes in youth, that he's always been wanting to get you through and push you through. He said that, I think, twice in his interview. So yeah, it'll be a benefit to have him, especially with Speakman as well, who obviously work with youth. I think they're going to work together on that and make sure that they do have more coming through the academy and more local lads playing for Sunderland and stuff like that. So that is going to be a benefit, but I don't think that's the answer they're looking for right now. I think it will be in January. That's just my thought, but that's what I believe in.
So sort of looking ahead now, obviously we've got 4 weeks to go until January. How do we change the way that we play until you can make bigger changes? How can he implement his system and what exactly is it? But also, he's got a bit of an injury crisis on his hands. Jordan Willis, Denver Hume, Luke O'Nien, Charlie Wyke, Lyndon Gooch. They're 5 players that I've picked out who are first team players. We've also got some younger players. I think Oliver Younger's injured. There's another under 23 defender who's injured as well. So we've got a lot of injuries, particularly defensive injuries as well. That to me means that he might actually be forced to play maybe the under 23 players, because the reality is we actually are running short of players at the minute, Malc. So do you think that, for the next 4 weeks, he's going to have to find a way of turning what we have right now into something positive? And if you look at the way we've played since we beat Ipswich on the 2nd of November, over a month ago, we've not won a game since that point. He has to find something within this squad of players for the next month. Otherwise, we're going to be staring out of League One the other way, rather than the way we want to be, which is back towards the Championship. So it's a difficult job for him, isn't it, Malc?
It is, but given himself and Speakman have both got major ties to focusing on academies, I think they'll find a way. We have got some options. I just had a quick look. Connor, I know we were talking about the youth injuries earlier on offline, and obviously there's. I thought he was youth, but he's not. He's one of our loanees. Feeney's not far from coming back, isn't he? So he's on the injured list as well. And in that cup game that we had the other week, there was Dunn, who I think popped an elbow or a shoulder or something, didn't he? And Younger, who had a cracking first half, who went off. So he's going to have to try and do 2 things at once, which is implement his system and find the best people to deliver it for him with the resources that are available at the time. It's not an easy job, and we have got a lot of injuries in wider terms that are going to make it even more difficult for him. The counter to that is, if he is going to focus on giving youth an option, then we've got an ideal opportunity coming up this week with a cup game. So let's let's, I would imagine there'll not be a lot of time off this weekend. I'd certainly not hope there would be after such a disappointing result anyway. But he'll want to get his hands on the squad and start drilling them the way he works. And he's going to have to find a way to at least keep us in touch until the January window opens. And the further point of that is, even when the January window opens, what do? We always buy right at the bloody end of it, because nobody will let their players go in case somebody in the Championship wants to pay more. So you end up with no real effective new players until the back end of February, once they've had 2 or 3 weeks to get up to speed. So he needs a plan for the next 2 or 3 months by expending minimal money, using the squad as well as it can, and also embedding his own tactics and formations at the same time. So he's got a big old job on his hand. But he's got a record of being a very good coach rather than just a football manager. So hopefully he's got the skills to do it.
And now we've also got a lot of players, coming out of contract at the end of the season. And the reality is they know with a new manager in place, it's a clean slate for them. It's a chance for them to impress maybe players that you might have thought's time was up at Sunderland. Conor McLaughlin being a prime example. I don't know if he's out of contract this summer, but he's a player that 6 months ago you probably thought his career at Sunderland was over. He couldn't even get in the squad. Now he looks like a pretty competent player. He's done pretty well since he's came in. I think that's fair to say. But there's a lot of players within that squad who are coming up. Luke O'Nien is one. I think Charlie Wyke's coming out of contract. Max Power's coming out of contract. You can look at Tom Flanagan signed a new one in the summer, but you can look at across that whole team there and go, you know what? These all need to play for new deals. And certainly in the way that the world is right now, and the lack of money in football, they're probably best off staying at Sunderland because they can probably get a similar contract to what they've got. Do you think that's where Lee Johnson needs to almost, challenge this squad? Because he's got 6 months now from now at the end of the season, whereby every single player in that dressing room knows that at the end of the season they're very easily, removed and very easily, transferred out, given free contracts. It's a big opportunity for him to shape his squad over the next 6 months so that at the end of the season he knows who's staying and who's going.
Yeah, well, it's the last chance saloon for a lot of them. I think other than Luke O'Nien, I don't think any of the other lads have warranted bigger moves. I can see O'Nien being picked up by a Championship team, but the rest of them, no. So I think they're going to have to put the work in, and they're going to have to prove it to Lee Johnson. Otherwise, they're probably going to have to drop. Maybe he's not drop a level that can probably stay in League One, but they'll not be at a club the size of us, and they'll certainly not get the wages they're getting now. So if they want that comfortable, nice lifestyles that they've got now, then they're gonna have to put the work in. They're gonna have to try and prove to Johnson that they're good enough to get a new contract and they're good enough to play for this team. A lot of them don't have the choice. And I think, like I just touched on with Luke O'Nien, I think he is the one which probably would move up a level. But he's got a fantastic work rate, and he's showed 100%, towards Sunderland since day one anyway. So that's not going to falter for him. But the other ones, it certainly is. The other ones need to, they need to pull it out the bag. Otherwise, they're going to find themselves playing for either League Two or lower level clubs on a much poorer wage as to what they're on now. So I think with Lee Johnson, he is, as Malcolm touched on, he's a very good coach. He's very good at man management. Sorry. And he is going to be saying to these players, it is a clean slate, it is a fresh start. Show me what you've got in training, and those who impress the most, and those I think who will do a job for us on the Saturday will play. And that that's exactly what we want to see. Conor McLaughlin, as you touched on, I thought he was done. I remember the Burton Albion game last year when we lost at home. That was one of the worst performances I've ever seen from a Sunderland player. He was absolutely dreadful. Got beat 2-1. He was at fault for both the goals. The fans had turned against him, and there was people shouting for Parkinson to take him off. It was awful. And to go from that, which was about a year ago, to where we are now with him, where we're quite trusting in him, aren't we? And we're confident if he's starting, fair enough, that's absolutely fine. He can start, he'll do a good job for us. So, other players do need to take a leaf from his book, and other players do need to think, I can turn this round and I can get back in this team. And now we've got the opportunity with a new manager, and maybe I can win myself another contract come the end of the season.
So switching now away from sort of the game at the weekend and the squad, I want to touch on something that was in the Sunderland Echo. Kyle Louis-Dreyfus was apparently involved in the appointment. To me, that suggests that this takeover must surely be done. I don't suspect they'll be asking his opinion if he's not going to be dipping his hand in his pocket. But Malcolm, do you think that the fact that Dreyfus was involved means that this is imminently going to be announced?
I think it must be. Yeah, I mean, do I absolutely think that? If I was part of that ownership board, even an ownership board, the present one, shall we say, you know, assuming the deal isn't done and we're still talking about the lads that we've had for a couple of 3 years. If I was part of that board and the deal hasn't been done, would I be giving them any say in what's happening in the club? Absolutely bloody not. Because they've got no right to, because they haven't put their money where their mouth is and signed up to what we need, you know, which is further investment and this, that and the other. Whether Stuart and Charlie and Juan would allow that to happen as a sweetener to the fact that, you know, they're trying to keep them on side to make sure the deal completes in the next couple of days or whatever it might be, possibly. But it's positive indication. The one disappointment for me is, why don't they just come out and tell everybody that it's done if it is? You know, I know there's been such a list of clubs going through challenges with takeover proposals in recent times. You know, I heard Wigan had one from some Spanish consortium or something canned this week, didn't they? Because they didn't look like they had the funds or the structure or whatever. So I get that you need to be sensitive about complex business transactions. But if on one hand you're trying to do that, and on the other hand you're making it publicly known that the bloke who might be buying your club helped decide who's going to be the new manager, then you kind of, it's a bit weird. But it's a good weird if he is involved. It's a terrible weird if he's not. Because why would you allow somebody who's, you know, nearly there to start getting the benefits? You know, those are the kind of carrots that you dangle in front of them so that when they are the main man or the majority stakeholder, they can have a voice in the board about those kind of decisions, you know. So it's a bit of a strange one. I wish they'd just, you know, come out with it, or just stop mixing messages and giving them to the public, because it doesn't help anybody and people just start speculating. So yeah, it's a bit of an odd one. I just want it done, or not. You know, if it isn't going to work, we need to find a new owner anyway. The only other thing I can think that might be involved here is that Kirill Louis-Dreyfus has turned around and said, right, I'm definitely in, okay, but here's a few prerequisites I've got before we're putting the final signature on. Number one, I'm sorry, but the manager isn't the model that I want to employ, so he needs to go. Number two, I want to have a sporting director, head coach model, not a new manager, and I want to have a bit of involvement in the interview process. And maybe those are prereqs to actually rubber stamping what's happening. You know, now, if that's the situation, we should hear about this being announced imminently, because all of that dross is behind us now. Phil's on the beach somewhere. Well, he'd love to be if he could fly anywhere. And the new partnership are in place, and you know, we're starting to move forward with them. That's the only other way. So, but even if that's true, it's got to be absolutely imminent. Otherwise, it absolutely doesn't make sense. You know, we'll see.
Niall, Kyle Louis-Dreyfus. Actually, did you know that our granddad used to work for Kyle Louis-Dreyfus? Just as a aside there, Niall, did you know that?
No.
Okay, there you are. Well, I rang him the other day, and he was talking about the Dreyfus takeover, and he was like, I used to work with the granddad. So presumably the granddad's the one who probably donkeys years ago. So yeah, he told us that, and I was like, that was really random. But Kyle Louis-Dreyfus, do you think that the fact that they've brought in the sporting director and they've brought in a manager now, surely, you know, Malcolm's touched on this as well, but surely that just means it's done. Surely it's for whatever reason not announced, but it has to be over the line, because they wouldn't have randomly went with a sporting director after being in for 2 years and never having a sporting director. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But do you think there's any chance that Dreyfus, you know, isn't going to be involved?
No, I think if you listen to Speakman and you listen to Johnson's first interviews, both touched on the ownership group. They both said with help through investment from the ownership group. Both of them said that, which tells me, you know, the ownership group that we've had haven't really invested much, have they? So they've obviously had an injection of cash. Where have they getting that from? They've getting it from Louis-Dreyfus, of course. Why has it not been announced? We don't know. Maybe they're just crossing the T's, dotting the I's, whatever they're doing, I don't know. But as Malcolm touched on, it is frustrating because you're sitting there thinking, just please announce it, then we can move on, and everyone can, salute the new owners, have a drink to it, and see what they can do for Sunderland AFC. You want that, but like I say, hopefully it's announced. Well, James Hunter said in the next 2 weeks, didn't he? And a few of the other local journalists have said in the next 2 weeks. That was last week, so hopefully it'll be announced sooner rather than later. But yeah, I think it's got to be done. It's got to be done, as you say. If Dreyfus has had an input in the new appointment of the new manager, and Speakman as well, and they both, like I said, touched on him in interviews and said about investment into what they want things invested in. Yeah, it's done. It's done. And I think, people just want it announced as well, for the fact of other people can basically go away and stop getting media attention and making the club look silly, because I think everyone's fed up with that. And I think the sooner that this is announced and it's done, the sooner all that'll go away, and the embarrassment that comes with that can also go away.
I just wonder if Willie Story's just been raiding post boxes and taking away the final letter so that he can still cling on to his dream with these rich backers. We've got a game on Tuesday, Oldham in the Papa John's Cup trophy. It's Papa John's trophy?
Trophy, I think.
Yeah.
It's the Johnston Paints trophy to me. That's what it'll always be. But Oldham, what do you think Lee Johnson does for that one? Because surely he'll be... Well, there's two ways to think, and I don't even know what he'll do, because number one, he might go with his strongest team so he can get to know them a bit better, and he might go with what he thinks is the strongest team. Or number two, he makes 11 changes and sees what the other half of the squad can do. But I don't know where he'll sit on that. Niall, if you were in Lee Johnson's position on Tuesday night, do you make sweeping changes? Do you make moderate changes? Or do you go with roughly what you think is your strongest team?
I would probably go with the strongest team, because I think that this team is very low on confidence, as we've seen. Saturday's performance was actually decent. In the fact of we had a lot of possession and we created, chances. We need goals. And goals is what brings confidence. So if it was me, I'd be playing my strongest team, and I'd be saying, go out there, beat Oldham. Go beat Oldham, score some goals, get it in you. This is what we're going to be doing from now on, to move on to the next game after that. Because, I think the next game's Lincoln as well in the league, which is, an incredibly tough game. So, yeah, I really do think that that's what he needs to be doing. I wouldn't blame him, and, I wouldn't be that angry either if he did, as you say, play the other half and see what else he's got in around the team and see who else we've got. I wouldn't blame him for that either. But if it was me, I'd be playing my strongest team. And also, it's an opportunity of bringing Sunderland a trophy as well. It is something. Yeah, it's not the trophy that we necessarily want, and probably wouldn't shout about it for years, but it's still a great way to install yourself in with the fans if you bring a trophy home, something that, no other manager's been able to do since 1973. So yeah, that would be good as well. So no, I think he will probably take it seriously, and yeah, if it was me, please start 11. But as you said, I've got absolutely no idea how he's going to approach it, and it'll be interesting to see how he approaches it.
Do you think, Malc, that maybe... Niall said they'll play the strongest 11. You won't know what his strongest 11 is. Do you think he'll possibly, though, go with a bit of a hybrid whereby the players that he liked the look of on Saturday start, and then he puts in maybe some of the ones that he left out who he thought might make a difference, so he can get an idea, I suppose, of where exactly we're at, and if the team he played on Saturday is actually his strongest?
I agree with what you're suggesting, Connor, actually, yeah. So I don't disagree, Niall, that there's a lot of reasons for putting a strong team out. We definitely need confidence. I don't dispute that for a moment. But for me, it's a bit like, building a jigsaw puzzle with the new manager and the sporting director. He'll have seen a few things that he liked on Saturday. There was quite a number of okay performances, which with a little bit of salt and pepper could have been, something that would have won us the game. But I think there'll be a few of the pieces that he's already punched out because they're not quite the right shape, and he'll want to try other ones in there. Now, whether he starts with a similar 11 and has, a lot of activity from the bench, I'm not sure. Do we get the same amount of subs in the cup games as we do in the league games? Does anybody know? Because I thought you got maybe more.
We haven't previously. I know when we played that one down at Fleetwood, we were only given 3, but we haven't played one of these games since the actual rule change. So I don't
So it's
know.
probably just going to match the league then, I would guess. But I was thinking if we get more than we even do in the league, then he could have it like a friggin' autumn international for England, couldn't he? Where partway through the game you bring on 6 or 7 players, especially if we've already got a strong lead. A couple of goal lead or something like that. I mean, that would be famous last words for Sunderland because, that's not what we're great at, holding on to 2 or 3 goal leads even. But yeah, I think he will go with a strong core, and some of that core will be things he's recognised can play in his formation and in his tactics and style from Saturday. It'll probably omit 1 or 2 or maybe more that he's already thinking that one needs a separate look to see who else is good at that. But he will take it seriously, even though I don't think he's going to be absolutely, full pelt from the first whistle. I think he'll put a strong side out because, Niall's point about confidence is absolutely bang on. We've got to get these lads believing in themselves and believing that what the new head coach and the own team can do is good enough, because there's a real confidence lull at the moment. You could see that after we went behind, the tails really dropped. So we'll see.
And next weekend, Lincoln City away, that was where Jack Ross saw his end. That's where the sword was thrown over his head and he was finished. We're here now playing Lincoln away again. We've had a manager in between. We've got a new manager, of course, now. It's been an interesting time since that game last year. But it's difficult to know, but do you think that Johnson will have learned so much on Saturday and will learn so much on Tuesday, and he will have had a full week training, that next weekend against Lincoln will at least resemble closer to his style, Niall? Or do you think that it's still going to be a case of, kind of hoping for the best and hoping that the merge of parky ball and this more progressive attacking play can somehow get us a positive result against a pretty good Lincoln side?
Yeah, it'll certainly be closer. Definitely be closer. I don't think it'll be nowhere near the finished product, but it'll certainly be closer. It'll be a lot more organised as to how he wants to organise it. The players will have a lot more of an understanding as to how he wants to play. And I think he's more of a coach than what Phil Parkinson is as well. I think he's better at man management. So he's going to be on that training pitch with every lad individually. And he's going to be helping them, and his other staff will also be helping them. So yeah, I think it'll be a lot more. I'm a lot more confident going into that game than what I would have been with Phil Parkinson. 100% more confident. So I think it gives us an opportunity to go there and get a result. I think it's a big statement if we go there and get a result, because we have beat a lot of good teams in this division this season, but we need to do it convincingly. We need to show people, because I think a lot of clubs will be looking at Sunderland thinking, well, they're probably a playoff team, or if not mid-table team at the moment, which is something which Johnson needs to change. And beating Lincoln away would be a massive, massive start to doing that. If we go to Oldham midweek and get beat, that's, even though it's such a short space of time, and one of them was, he took over in the morning, the other one was a cup game, it's still going to look like 2 defeats from his first 2 games. That's still what it's going to look like. Which means that there might be more pressure on that Lincoln game, which again brings us back to the question you asked before about how much of a risk it was getting straight in the dugout from the start. So, a lot of risk taken in there, but like I say, I think I'm confident going to Lincoln knowing that we'll be more prepared and knowing that we'll give them a better game than what I think we would have given them under Parkinson. I think under Parkinson, it would have just been go there, be tight, hope one of their players gets sent off, hope one of their players makes a mistake, hope we get a penalty and win the game, which is what he did virtually all season. So that's what we need to be hoping on that can all change, and that he's actually got a plan in place. And if the plan A doesn't work, he's got a plan B, because again, Parkinson never ever had a plan B. So a plan B, a C, a D until he finds the win in it. And I've got the confidence he has that, and I've got the confidence that that'll get us a result, or give us a very good opportunity of getting a result against Lincoln next week.
Okay. First off, Newcastle ladies were dispatched 5-2 by Sunderland today, so it's always nice to win a derby, and well done the lasses. Hopefully we'll get some highlights from that, but I won't necessarily hold my breath because Sunderland's coverage of ladies and under-23s hasn't been the best this season. Well, we've got some 3-word reviews to read. I used to always do these at the start, but I thought that I'd maybe save them for the end, mainly because I kind of wanted to make sure you were in a good mood as we recorded. But let's start with these. Anne Caldwell, shot to bits. Hard to disagree. Lee Barker, same old crap again. Steve Hayward, same old shite. That was minging by Ross Sanderson. Michael Dunn, must buy players. Well, he's in agreement with you there, Niall. James Bobble, so bloody slow. Again, I think we all know that. Barks says stop the rot. John Ridley, massive January window. Well, we've talked about that. Niall thinks that it will be as well. So you've got a few people in agreement there with you, Niall. Jason Beattie, big job ahead. Ross Hall, we will improve. Well, I sure hope so, Ross. Cameron Johnson, welcome to Sunderland. Yeah, that was a baptism, wasn't it? You know what, I actually thought it had, when we were getting beat 1-0 with 5 minutes left, it kind of reminded me of the game against Blackburn under Martin O'Neill, and I was like, yeah, this is what's going to happen here. We're going to come against a stubborn side at home and get a 2-1 win with 2 late goals. Obviously, it didn't happen. Sean Cottrell, attacking, training, incoming. Loza, Scowen's corners, shite. Well, we've touched on that. Ian Carse, new lows weekly. Difficult to disagree with. Any of these particularly resonate with you guys here, or is this just really what you're feeling, Malc?
They resonate. You know, disappointment is something we're getting very practiced at, right? So I'm kind of pleased you didn't have them at the start, Connor, because even though we lost yesterday, and I haven't read a lot of the social media feedback about the game, and I haven't even seen the interviews of you know, Lee Johnson and the guys post the match. I didn't leave the match thinking it was terrible. I left the match thinking, you know, we were very industrious, but at points a little bit laboured and slow, and we just couldn't convert what we were creating. Now, that was similar under Parky, so that, you know, you would suggest that means nothing's changed. And is it going to change in 3 or 4 hours of the new guy being in place? Of course it bloody isn't. So people have to take a spoonful of realism as well with what the guy's taking on. But the overall feeling I took away from the game was that could easily have been a draw, which wouldn't have been a great result either. And if we can get better in the final third, then, you know, the capability is there. So yeah, I don't disagree with most of them comments. They're all valid. But I'm a little bit more of an optimist than a number of those guys who've done the 3-word reviews, because it's very early days for Lee and the lads, and we've got to give the bloke a chance. So we'll see. He'll be beasting the life out of them on the training pitch probably right now, I would guess, and through to Tuesday and ready for next weekend. The point on the Lincoln game as well, you know, interestingly, we've won ugly a number of times, but we've generally won ugly against the higher teams that we're playing rather than against the basement battlers. So, you know, if we can turn that into winning not so ugly, you know, then that's got to be helping with confidence as well. So hopefully in the week and a bit that we've got, or a week more or less, then, you know, the coach can do that.
Okay, well, we'll wrap that one up. Thanks, Niall, for coming in. Always good to see your pretty face. And Malc, of course, a pleasure as always. Please remember, subscribe to ROKER Report. There'll be loads of content as well going on our website with people writing very hot takes and perking your interest. Let us know if you disagree on Twitter with any of our takes. Let us know if you think Niall's full of shite, as most of you probably will. Thank you for listening.